Hello, people. Watchman blows the horn here, and I'm blowing the horn as loudly as I can. I've come here today to speak about the issue of tribulation and why it's very, very important that we get this right. You see, according to Yeshua, a time would come when tribulation would come to the saints and many would fall away because many would be offended. And according to Yeshua, the reason why he told us the things that would happen before time was so that we wouldn't be offended. So tribulation is coming, but I want to show through the scriptures why tribulation is coming, where it says tribulation is coming. And the reason why it's very, very important for every believer to know that tribulation is coming, because I don't want anyone falling away. It's very important we know what time it is. Okay? Okay. So, rightly dividing Matthew 24. Remember, Yeshua's word, the word of Yehovah, is a puzzle. It is scattered and must be put together. Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Isaiah 28, verses 9 and 10. It's a puzzle. It must be put back together properly, rightly divided. So, let's begin with Matthew 24. Let's first understand the context of Matthew 24. What is Matthew 24 talking about? Okay, so we begin. Now, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Matthew 24, verse 33. So Matthew 24 is a description of events that will take place before the coming of Yeshua, which happens at the end of the age. So the question that's posed at the beginning of Matthew 24, the question determines every other thing that's written in the rest of Matthew 24, because every other thing written is a response to the question. And fundamentally, what do they want to know? What will be the signs of your coming? Remember, the coming of the Son of Man is the rapture. That day is the day of judgment. The two different things. Coming of the Son of Man is the rapture. That's when we're gathered to him. That day is the day of judgment, when he comes down with his armies to pass judgment. Okay? So, and the end of the age. Okay, because the coming of the Son of Man will happen at the end of the age. Lo, I am with you until the end of the age. Okay, so it's important that we understand that. So moving on, he is talking about what will transpire at the end of the age, which I am sure everyone by now realizes that we're at the end of the age. Okay, so what happens at the beginning of the end of the age? Or how does Yeshua answer? We move forward. And Jesus answered and said unto them, "Take heed that no man deceive you." So deception. "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ." Note, not I am the Christ, I am Christ, I am anointed, and shall deceive many. Okay, now after that, that's the first thing. Now after that, you now have, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Matthew 24, verses 4 to 6. And then you move on to, "For nations will rise against nation, and kingdoms against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrow." So Yeshua gives a label to this period. He calls it the beginning of sorrows. If you look at the word that's used here, the word for sorrow is birth pains, or the pains that come before the birth. And what is the birth? The birth is Revelation 12. Okay, the birth of the man-child, the rapture. It's also described in Matthew 24, verses 31, and at the sixth seal in the Revelation 6. Okay, so these are all the beginning of sorrows. That's what this period is called. So there's a period of birth pangs, okay, which comes before the birth, and then you have the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, so then shall they, so after, during the time of the birth pangs, towards the end of the birth pangs, it now goes into this, it says, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. So this is talking about Yeshua's followers, the followers in Yeshua. Okay, during the time of birth pangs. Now, birth pangs happens before what? The birth. Okay, now the birth is the rapture. Okay, so we have the birth pangs, then the rapture, then the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, now the church is the one that is around during the birth pangs. Because after the birth pangs, then the church is birthed into the heavenly Yerushalayim. And then the saints, the children of Jacob, are left on the earth to go through the time of Jacob's trouble. And only the children of Jacob, the remnant third of the children of Jacob, will be rescued out of the time of Jacob's trouble. So when people say that, Gentiles will be rescued out of the time of Jacob's trouble, that is not true. It says that blindness in part has come to the Jews until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in, the age of grace ends. Then the time of Jacob's trouble comes, but the remnant of the children of Jacob will be rescued out of the time of Jacob's trouble. So no Gentile will be rescued during the time of Jacob's trouble. Know that. That is the reason why in Revelation 7, those who are standing before the throne are the multitude from every tongue, every tribe, every nation. They're not just the children of Jacob. They are the multitude, the Goyim, the Gentile nations. Okay? I digress. Let's continue. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Okay? Now, and then shall many be offended. Note, many will be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So those who endure to the end will be saved. Now, what end is this talking about? Well, it's talking about when the wrath of God arrives, as we shall see. Okay, so it's Matthew 24, verses 10 to 13. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Now notice, the gospel of the kingdom will be preached. The reason is because as Christians are being persecuted, they are taken before people, and they will speak their truth. They will tell the world that the kingdom of God is approaching, that the heavenly Yerushalayim is approaching, the fiery red dragon is approaching. They will tell the world it's not man-made climate change. It is the approach of God. It is the approach of the throne of God, because he's coming to judge the world. That is why it's the gospel of the kingdom. The kingdom of God is approaching. It's on its way. And that is what Christ says here, will be preached in all the world, because in all the world, Christians will be hated and persecuted and taken before judges and many great men. And that will be the final opportunity to showcase the believers. That is, God, Yeshua and Jehovah will showcase his believers at that time, because they will be the ones to explain what's going on. Okay? So, Matthew 24, verses 3 to 14, then we stop. That's the dividing line. Okay? Now, we now go to John 16. Now here, John 16, Jesus says, these things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. Now remember how Matthew 24, verse 1 to 14 ends? Remember this? And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another. Remember, this is talking about the end of the age now. It's specific. It's talking about the end of, it's describing what will happen at the end of the age, the time that we are in now. So it says, many will be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. Now, what does Jesus say? In John, this is Jesus speaking now. He says, these things have I, he's talking in John 15, he was talking about persecution that would come. And then in John 16 here, he's saying, these things have I spoken unto you, that ye should not be offended. In other words, when these things start to happen, these things that we just read in Matthew 24, verses 1 to 14, when these things begin to happen, don't be offended. So these things I've told you these things about persecution that's coming, so that when it happens, you will not be offended. These things have I spoken unto you, that ye should not be offended. They shall put you out of the synagogues, yea, the time cometh that whoever killeth you will think that he does God service. John 16, verse 1 and 2. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father nor me. But these things have I told you, that when the time shall come, ye may remember that I told you of them. And these things I said not unto you at the beginning, because I was with you. John 16, verse 3 to 4. But now I go my way to him that sent me, and none of you asketh me, whither goest thou? Or whither goest thou? But because I have said these things unto you, sorrow hath filled your hearts. John 16, verse 5 and 6. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. So he's talking to people who he will send the Comforter to. Now, who does he send the Comforter to? The church. Okay? The Comforter will not come unto you, but if I depart, I will send him unto you. And when he is come, he will reprove the world of sin and of righteousness and of judgment. John 16, verses 7 and 8. Of sin, because they believe not on me; of righteousness, because I go to my Father, and ye see me no more; of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. John 16, verses 9 to 12. Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. John 16, verse 13. He shall glorify me, for he shall receive of mine, and shall show it unto you. All things that the Father has are mine. Therefore said I, that he shall take of mine, and shall show it unto you. John 16, verses 4 to 15. A little while, and ye shall not see me, and again a little while ye shall see me, because I go to the Father. Then said some of his disciples among themselves, what is this that he said unto us? A little while, and ye shall not see me, and again a little while ye shall see me. And because I go to the Father. They said, therefore, what is this that he said? Sorry. Yeah. They said, therefore, what is this that he said? A little while, we cannot tell what he said. Now Jesus knew what they were desirous to ask him, and said unto them, do ye inquire among yourselves of that I said, a little while, and ye shall not see me, and again a little while, and ye shall see me. John 16, verses 18 to 19. Verily, verily, I say unto you, that ye shall weep and lament, but the world shall rejoice. So he's talking about the whole experience of the church in the world. The church is in the world telling people about Yeshua, that he is the light of the world, he is the only way, he is the door, and they receive persecution. But the world shall rejoice, and ye shall be sorrowful, but your sorrow shall be turned into joy. This is when he arrives. John 16, verse 20. Now, for you to know that he's talking about the end days, he's talking to his disciples, but he's talking about the end days. Whenever you see the phrase in the Bible, a woman when she is in travail, it's talking about the end times. It's talking about the time right before the rapture, the birth. So so Jesus says here, a woman when she is in travail hath sorrow. Okay, remember what we read earlier on about the beginning of sorrows? Okay, because her hour is come. But as soon as she is delivered of the child, she remembereth no more the anguish for joy that a man is born into the world. John 16, verse 21. So he puts this here for people to understand that he's talking about the end times, because this is a direct reference to Revelation 12, which talks about the woman in travail, and then she finally gives birth. Okay. Now, and ye now therefore have sorrow. So you see the same word used here, the same as the beginning of sorrows, birth pangs. He's talking about the tribulation that occurs before the birth. But I will see you again, and your heart shall rejoice. This is when he comes back. This is when the birth takes place, when he raptures his church, and your joy no man taketh from you. John 16, verse 22. And in that day ye shall ask me nothing. Verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Ask, and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. John 16, verse 23 to 24. These things have I spoken unto you in Proverbs, but the time cometh when I shall no more speak unto you in Proverbs, but I shall show you plainly of the Father. John 16, verse 25. At that day ye shall ask in my name, and I say not unto you, that I will pray the Father for you, for the Father himself loveth you, because he has loved me, and have believed that I came out from God. John 16, verse 26 and 27. I came forth from the Father, and am come into the world. Again I leave the world, and go to the Father. His disciples said unto him, Lo, now speakest thou plainly, and speakest not Proverbs. John 16, verse 28 to 29. Now are we sure that thou knowest all things, and needest not that any man should ask thee. By this we believe that thou camest forth from God. Jesus answered them, Do ye now believe? John 16, verse 30 to 31. Behold, the hour cometh, ye is now come, that ye shall be scattered, every man to his own, and shall leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. Okay, so Jesus is talking here about, of course, leading up to his death. John 16, verse 32. These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. So he says this again. The reason why I have said this thing, because that in the time of the end, many will be offended. So at the beginning of this passage, it tells us, I've told you these things because when that tribulation comes at the end, many will be offended. Okay, I'm telling you these things because I don't want you to be offended. I want you to know what's going on. So now he's saying again, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have, what does it say? Tribulation. Okay? But be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So, in the world you will have what? Tribulation. These are the words of Jesus. And in the context of this passage, he's talking about the end times, the time when the woman is in travail, the time when people will become offended. I have spoken these things to you so that you would have peace, and you'll be able to spread that peace to other people. Because when this tribulation comes, you'll understand what's going on. You will know that I've told you, and it will give you the confidence to overcome. He said, I have overcome the world. So what's he talking about when he talks about overcome? What does overcome mean? He says, I've overcome the world. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. Why is this verse put here? We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony, and not loving our lives unto death. That's what Jesus is telling us. He who overcomes, and how do you overcome? By the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony, and not loving your life unto death, not being afraid to die. That's what Yeshua is saying here. So, to him that overcometh, now we already know what to overcome means, because Yeshua overcame the world and is now seated by his Father. And we know how we overcome. It says we overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, and we did not love our lives unto death. So, to him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Revelation 3, verse 21 and 22. So, Yeshua crowns the overcomers. And how do we overcome? It says it clearly. We overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We loved not our lives to the death. The same way Yeshua loved not his life to the death. Remember the passage, it's talking about the end times, when this tribulation comes, the one that will cause offense. And Yeshua is saying, I am telling you beforehand, so that when the tribulation comes, you will not take offense. You will know that it is only for a short while, and you will be able to encourage other people. Don't tell people that there won't be tribulation. Yeshua said there would be tribulation, and he told us these things so that when the tribulation comes, we would have peace and comfort. So those who go around telling the church that there will not be tribulation are diametrically opposed to the words of Yeshua. It's very important we know this, because we are fast approaching the time when this tribulation spoken of by Yeshua will come upon the world. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So how did they overcome? By the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony, and they did not love their lives unto death. So at the fifth seal, they're the ones who have overcome. It says it clearly here. I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony. We overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, and we loved not our lives unto death. The testimony which they held, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, doth thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And these are people at the end, okay, who have been martyred, who have been killed, who have gone through tribulation, as Yeshua just said to us. Revelation 6 verses 9 and 10. And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest for a little season until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. So there's a set number of people who will go through this, who will die this way. And Yeshua is saying, I'm telling you this so that when the time comes, you will understand that you being killed is liberation. If you are killed in this way, you are coming into glory. So do not be afraid. Have peace. Do not be afraid. Do not fear. Okay? And unto the angel of the church of Smyrna write, These things said the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Revelation 2 verses 8 and 9. Fear none of these things. He's talking to the church now. Fear none of these things, which he's talking to this particular church, but this particular church is obviously a church of the end times. So fear none of these things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison. What does it say in Matthew 24? You shall be handed over, and they will cast you into the prison, that ye may be tried. Okay? And ye shall have tribulation 10 days. So remember in Matthew 24, it says, after the tribulation of those days. So here, Yeshua is telling us how long the tribulation would last. It will last for 10 days. There is nowhere in the Bible where it says anything about a 7-year tribulation. Please show it to me if you have it, if you see it. It's the times that are spoken about when it says people will go through tribulation. Matthew 24 verse 29, when it says immediately after the tribulation of those days, which corresponds to what Yeshua says here, 10 days. The only other time that it talks about tribulation, where it mentions great tribulation, is at the halfway point of the time of Jacob's trouble, where it talks about there being great tribulation, great trouble, great distress. It doesn't label the time as the great tribulation. No, that's a falsehood. And it's a falsehood that's deceiving many people. When you use the word tribulation to label periods, you confuse people, because tribulation simply means trouble. It's like me using the word anguish instead of trouble, or distress instead of trouble. And then I use the word distress to label a period. So whenever you talk about tribulation, people think you're talking about, people think, oh, no, that is exclusive to the 7 years of Jacob's trouble. And that's not true. The word tribulation is used to describe, the trouble that we've gone through over centuries. It's also used to describe the specific trouble that will occur at the fifth seal, just before the birth, at the end of the age. Tribulation, as is written in Matthew 24. People say, okay, Matthew 24 is talking about the end, when Jesus. No. At the end, when Yeshua comes, he's coming on a horse with the armies of heaven. Okay, and he comes down and he does battle. Matthew 24 verse 31, it talks about Yeshua coming in the clouds, okay, sending his angels to gather his elect from the four corners up to heaven. So at his coming, the coming of the Son of Man, Yeshua is in the clouds and he gathers us up. At the end, he's on a horse with a sword coming out of his mouth, with the armies of heaven behind him, and he's coming to do battle and to slaughter. So Matthew 24 is not talking about the end, it's talking about the rapture. So if you realize that, which is just obvious, and if you realize that, then it says immediately after the tribulation of those days. In other words, the tribulation that's spoken of there occurs before the rapture. So when people talk about the 7-year tribulation, that is falsehood. The final 7 years of this age are labeled as a time of Jacob's trouble or Daniel's 70th week. It is never ever described as the time of tribulation. And as it's clearly stated in Matthew 24 verse 29, the tribulation is speaking of days. Days. The tribulation happens over days, not months or years. Days. It says it there immediately after tribulation of those days. It says it here. 10 days you will have tribulation. Okay? Now, the enemy has a plan. He's had a plan from the very beginning, and he is now executing that plan. This is the reason why it's very important that we understand what's going on, and very important to know what time it is, because the enemy is right in the middle of executing his plan. And I want you to understand, so that you tell people, so that when the final phase of his plan comes in, you can assure people, you can let them know, look, Yeshua told us this would happen, so don't be afraid. It is so that you can give your testimony. It is so that you can give your testimony, and you're not supposed to love your lives to death, because you're sold out to Yeshua. You're ready to leave what's on this earth. That's what Yeshua is telling you, so that you have peace. I'm telling you these things before it comes. So what are their plans? Now let me tell you what some of their plans are. So this is from a guy called Albert Pike, who's a Freemason. And he says this: the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenta, the agents of the Illuminati, between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. This is their wish. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which, in all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effects of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirit will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Albert Pike, 33-degree Freemason, Scottish writer. Freemasonry, August 15, 1871. Albert Pike. This is their plan, and don't laugh at this. Don't think that this is far-fetched, because they're projecting it. Okay, they projected it on this cover of The Economist magazine. This is the entire end times, the entire birth pangs, up the beginning of the birth pangs up until the birth and the fall of Satan is on this cover. This is their whole plan. Okay, this Economist cover was first printed on the 1st of January 2016. Okay, go to Amazon and search for it. You will see this information. Okay, so this was printed long before Donald Trump became the president of the United States. Okay, now this is the plan that Yeshua was revealing to us in Matthew 24. It's their plan. It's a plan that's being carried out. It's the same plan that was told us in Revelation 6. The whole thing from Revelation 6 to the end is talking about the beginning of the birth pangs all the way up until the birth, the rapture. Okay, so here you have the rider on the white horse. Notice the card is tilted. Okay, signifying that this is the beginning of the sequence. The arrival of the rider on the white horse. With the Revelation 12 sign marked this. Revelation 12 sign started on the 17th of November 2016 and lasted until the 23rd of September 2017. This was when Donald Trump won the election and was made president. He was crowned. And this is the guy who came with a bowl, a covenant. Okay, a covenant with many, which will later on be confirmed by the Antichrist. Okay, this marked the beginning of the birth pangs. Okay, now the world card talks about the end of one cycle and the beginning of another cycle. Okay, the Hermit speaks of all these events, and this is upheaval. So upheaval being orchestrated by the Hermit, which represents the secret societies, of which the Freemasons are the apex. Now, this is where we are. Okay, upheaval, wars and rumors of wars. This is where we are. Now, the next phase is there's something will transpire which will cause this. This is a nuclear explosion, and you can see vegetation destroyed. You can see droughts. You can see waters dried up, dead fish, and you can see death. Okay, with the sickle. This is what's coming next. Now, this is what will lead to the persecution of Christians. Now after this card, you now have the Magician. This is Baphomet. Okay, as above, so below. Okay, this represents human beings. This represents houses. Okay, or Katerian. Now, Baphomet is the same as Azazel, the fallen angel, the fallen goat angel, which brought all iniquity to man. He is also the false prophet. He is the one who will give the mark of the beast to people. 666. That's why Aleister Crowley, he learned everything he learned when he went to Egypt. I believe that's where he was possessed by this Baphomet, because he started calling himself the beast, 666. Now, this basically is them giving or doing something to human beings that will cause the human beings. You see, I don't believe that the Essenes are the mark of the beast, but it's a process. They started the process, and that's where they're going. Okay, that's where they're going. It's obvious, and they don't want people to express this. Okay, now, and also with the event that happens here will make them will make it easier. The chaos that happens here will make it easier for them to implement this, and to implement this, and this is the killing of Christians, going after Christians. And then after this, the end of the sequence, that's the rapture. This is the fiery red dragon, the red planet, stars. Those who bring people to righteousness will shine like stars, according to Daniel. Those are stars, people in stars. When the fiery red dragon arrives, we will first see it as a comet in the sky. That's what this is alluding to. Then we come here, thunder. I saw Satan fall from heaven as lightning. Okay, now at this point, after the rapture, many will come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua. These are now the saints, the remnant children of Jacob. And then you will have the godless. So there will be a dividing between the goats and the sheep, the wheat and the tares, when Satan is cast out of heaven. So they are telling us in this cover the entire plan that they have. Okay? And this is where we are at the moment. This is the next move. Okay? It's very important we understand where we are. They bring order out of chaos. The agents of the Illuminati, the children of the dragon and Apollyon, and the false prophet, are in this organization, the Freemasons. And their modus operandi is to bring order out of chaos. See, they have an agenda. So they use the Hegelian dialectic. Okay? They have an agenda. They manufacture a crisis. People react and accept their solutions, which was part of the agenda to begin with. So, their plan. Okay? What is their plan? And this is what I believe will happen very, very soon. It's called Operation Blackjack. Okay? The final solution to the world's born-again Christian problem. The world does have a born-again Christian. You see, the world is rejecting Yeshua and rejecting Yehovah. They now call the Bible hate speech. So automatically they just don't want to see Christians anymore. So they're going to find a reason to go after Christians. Now remember, it's the same spirit. The modus operandi doesn't change. Remember Nero? When he wanted to go after the Christians, what did he do? He set Rome on fire, and then he blamed the Christians, and then there was intense Christian persecution. The reason why God allowed that to happen was because it's in the persecution that the Christians spread the word. That is, when people look at the Christians and think, my goodness, these people are a peculiar people. They're not afraid. They're not afraid to die because they know where they're going. So we shouldn't be afraid to die. So Operation Blackjack is what is coming. Okay, now this is a write-up by a guy called Reveal Truth, and this write-up was written 12 years ago. Okay, it says, in Telegraph's own words, this is entirely fictitious. Telegraph's intentions is showing this slideshow remain a mystery, bizarre indeed, but fitting in with current events. The Daily Telegraph website has been featuring a work of art called Blackjack, a slideshow depicting nuclear explosions throughout England and the US, followed by the inevitable introduction of martial law. What makes this so scary is the Telegraph has long been presumed to have close links with British intelligence agencies. Their former director was a Rothschild. Friday, January 16th, 2009, a bizarre, anonymous, and offensive picture gallery currently appearing on the website of the London Telegraph newspaper that tells the story of a terrorist nuke attack on London has left many asking questions about its origin and meaning. The sideshow features on a section uh, dedicated to art, culture, film, and music, but seemingly holds no artistic credence whatsoever, comprising merely of a series of crude pictures designed to instill fear into the viewer. The only purpose of the gallery is presumed just a continuation of the incessant drone of fear-mongering propaganda from the establishment media and authorities about the imminent inevitability of a mass casualty terror attack entitled Blackjack. The gallery begins with a date, June 20 at 2 p.m., followed by an MI5 logo and the text MI5 reports warns government of imminent terror attacks. This certainly makes sense during the This certainly makes sense. During the summer solstice, the name on the side of the van is New Dawn. Presentations and the logo is the sun. Apollo worship. Do you get it? New Dawn, Aleister Crowley, the sun, Apollo. They tell you who's doing this. They tell you who's behind these plans. The white van also harks back to the King Star controlled demolition company van that was pictured near the exploded bus after the 7/7 London bombings. After citizens panic, buy groceries, and flee London in droves on June 22nd at 8:03 a.m., the nuke explodes in central London. The images then show the devastation in the aftermath of the attack, as the Houses of Parliament, Buckingham Palace, and Big Ben lay in ruins. This is only the end of part one, and in part two, we are promised similar devastation with an image of millions fleeing New York City. This disgusting and pointless gallery cannot be classed as culture, art, or anything of the sort. It is nothing more than gratuitous macabre pornography for those in establishment, and believe me, there are many that yearn for another 9/11 or worse in order to unravel their contemptuous political agenda. What kind of sick mind created this, and why was it allowed to feature so prominently on the major UK newspaper website? On a major UK website, newspaper website. This is vile, vulgar propaganda and downright offensive, especially to the millions of people who lived in London and New York City and have already suffered terrorist attacks, both of which were carried out with the complete complicity of the British and US governments within the past decade. We need answers as to who created this, what its implausible artistic merit is, and why the London Telegraph allowed it to appear on their website. So that's basically what the Operation Blackjack artistic piece is basically depicting. Okay, the ushering in of the New World Order. I'm not making this up. You can look it up. Operation Blackjack, Part 1, June 20th, 2 p.m. MI5 report warns government of imminent terror attacks. A coalition of now this is why it's very important that we understand what's coming, because this is coming. We have to understand the reason why it's happening. Remember Nero? Remember what he did? Why he did it? So, a coalition of homegrown extremists, Islamists, and Christian doomsday cultists may have acquired the means to carry out a mass casualty attack. Such a strike may take the form of a biological, chemical, or even nuclear attack in one of the main population centers. Human intelligence indicates that this group is ready to strike at any time. In the event of such an attack, the likelihood of many thousands of casualties is high. So, these these cities apparently are attacked. London, New York City, Washington, D.C., Toronto, Mexico City, Portland, Los Angeles. So, part 3. What does the chaos that comes out of the attacks, what does it lead to? Emergency transmission, stay at home, and await further instructions. We've had attacks. By the way, once this war takes off, then jihad will be called the Malhama al-Kubra. And the persecution of Christians will intensify, especially because now in the West, after the attacks, Christians will be blamed for this attack. So the whole world will hate Christians. There won't be a part of the world where you can find refuge. Emergency Transmission Network, Operation Blackjack, Part 5. So, what comes out of this chaos? Our union, attention citizens, our Union of Nations has been left scared but unbowed by the June 22nd attack. Your government has meted out justice on the countries responsible for planning these evil crimes. However, the time of danger is not past. At least 6 other terror cells are operating in North America and 2 in the British Isles. There is reason to believe they are equipped with more nuclear devices. This is a moment of grave danger. We cannot allow further destruction and mass loss of life. Under the terms of the Emergency Contingencies Act 2011, your government is instituting the following precautionary measures with immediate effect. 1. All purchases, businesses, and financial transactions across the UNA must now be supported by presentation of your UNA biometric identification card. UNA oversight has the authority to close businesses that fail to demand sight of the card from all clients and customers. Citizens who fail to carry their cards and their cards and present it upon demand could face unlimited jail term. Do you get that? Do you see the order coming out of the chaos? 2. All citizens are obliged with immediate effect to make contact with their approved health provider to arrange to receive a one-time vaccination against a range of biological and chemical agents. There is no charge for this implant. Failure to comply could result in an unlimited prison term. Did you get that? Did you get that? Do you see where they're going? It's coming. Operation Blackjack. It's coming. They show you their plans before they carry it out. It's some kind of ritual that they're obsessed with. It's coming. 3. There is considerable evidence that some internet chat rooms, listen to this now, internet chat rooms, alternative websites, and other forms were used by the perpetrators of the June 22 attacks to coordinate their actions to prevent further use of the web for to prevent further use of the web for these purposes. Steps are being taken by the regulatory authorities to monitor and prevent unpatriotic abuse of digital communication. I beg your pardon. There is considerable evidence that some internet chat rooms, alternative websites, and other forums were used by the perpetrators of the June 22 attacks to coordinate their attacks to prevent further use of the web for these purposes. Steps are being taken by the regulatory authorities to monitor and prevent unpatriotic abuse of digital communication. I hope you're listening to this. All journalists operating within the UNA are required to contact the DHSO, Department of Homeland Security and Oversight, within 1 month. Registration is mandatory. Upon registration, the DHSO will satisfy itself of a journalist's credentials and issue a license to operate all persons intending to publish material for consumption by third parties in any medium must be registered and approved. Failure to comply could result in an unlimited jail term. Did you hear that? And what do you think this will cause? So, Christian fundamentalists, religious doomsday terrorists have carried out these attacks all over the West, and they claim that the cells are still everywhere. So, what do you think will happen? Of course, they'll go after the doomsday terrorists, the Christians. And according to Jesus, this will be an opportunity for us to spread the word. Tell them that the kingdom of God is coming. It's on its way. And that the world will be judged. The judgment is here already. So, for nations shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows, birth pangs. That's where we are. Now, do you see what will lead to the transition? So the nations rising up against nations will be caused by these Christian fundamentalist terrorists. That's the reason why then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Matthew 24, verse 7 to 9. This is the tribulation spoken of, the sorrow, the birth pangs, travail, pain, the pain of childbirth, travail, pain, birth pangs, intolerable anguish in reference to the dire calamities preceding the advent of Messiah. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Matthew 24, verses 10 to 13. So, the same way Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, was betrayed, handed over, tried, scourged, left alone. A criminal was chosen over him, carried his own cross. He died on that cross. You see, Yeshua died for us. Are we ready to lose our lives for his sake? The time has come for every follower of Yeshua to ask and answer this question. Are you ready to overcome? And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Revelation 12, verse 11. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Matthew 16, verses 24 to 25. You see, the dragon hates the elect bride and is going after her to destroy as many as possible before the great rapture rescue, because he doesn't want many people to be raptured. That is the reason why the church has to wake up and tell people, let them understand that it's a plan. It's a plan that's being carried out. We are in the middle of the most insidious crime, and it's being rolled out at the moment, and it is a play for the souls of men. Born-again believers who know what time it is and who know what the Bible says know that this is coming, so they must warn people. And that is why the enemy will soon come after them with Operation Blackjack. So, you understand the reason for these. Is it really about health? Or are they just preparing for when they come after the believers? Contact tracing. So when you get that knock at the door, your relative gets that knock at the door, and they ask, do you have any relative who is a doomsday apocalyptic extremist? Will you tell your family? Many shall betray one another. Many shall hate one another. Wife against husband, son against father, father against son, mother against daughter, daughter against mother. People will betray one another. They will come and they will knock. It's coming. Many will be taken away. And this will be the perfect excuse for the enemy to go after the Christians and slaughter as many as possible. Are you ready to overcome? How do you overcome? And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Revelation 12 verse 11. It happened at the beginning of the church age, and it will happen again at the end. Be prepared. Because the spirit that persecutes Christians is the same, and his modus operandi doesn't change. Create chaos, blame the Christians, go after them. And that is why the Christians will be under the altar, saying, "How long, O Lord, faithful and true, will you not judge the inhabitants of the earth?" And the Lord will say to them, give them white robes and just wait until the full number of your brethren who will be killed have been killed. And then the end will come. The sixth seal. So, tribulation, rightly dividing. There in the book of Baruch, it talks about the 12 calamities and the arrival of Messiah taking place over a period of 7 weeks of 7. But according to Yeshua, tribulation will last 10 days. 10 days. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Matthew 24, verse 29. So the tribulation happens before the rapture. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man as the second Revelation 12 sign, the fiery red dragon, in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn for fear of things that are coming upon the earth, for the heavens shall be shaken. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Matthew 24, verse 30. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Matthew 24, verse 31. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Revelation 6, verse 12. And the stars of the heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Revelation 6, verses 13 to 14. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Revelation 6, verse 15. And said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? So at the rapture, remember Matthew 24, 31, it's talking about them mourning. People mourn, they hide when Yeshua comes in the clouds. But at the second coming, they're coming out to fight Yeshua when Yeshua comes on the horse. So this is the difference. So Matthew 24 is not speaking about the end, it's speaking about the rapture. So the tribulation happens for days before the rapture. And what is this that causes the sun to be darkened and the moon to not give her light? It's what's described here, the approach of the fiery red dragon. Their light has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the ends of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the Son of righteousness. Son of righteousness spoken about in Malachi. Sun of righteousness will rise and burn up the wicked. That's what's causing the heat. So the Son of Righteousness, is coming with the tabernacle, the heavenly Jerusalem, which is like a bridegroom, Yeshua, coming out of his chambers, and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. It's coming on its course. You see, it's a circuit, it goes back and forth. It's come here before. The destroyer, the fiery red dragon, the Son of Righteousness, is coming back again, and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. Its rising is from one end of heaven, and its circuit to the other end, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. Psalm 19, verses 4 to 6. That's what's burning everything up. The fiery red dragon is on its way, and we have entered the red zone. That's why the natural disasters are getting worse. It is what will cause the sun to be darkened, because it will eclipse the sun, and it will cause a lunar eclipse at the same time. It is coming with the heavenly Jerusalem. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon its head. Revelation 12, verse 3. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman. So you see, the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born. Revelation 12, verse 4. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up at harpazo, raptured unto God and to his throne. Revelation 12, verse 5. So, the birth, this is when the birth occurs, because the coronation must take place on the 10th of Nisan. So if the coronation takes place on the 10th of Nisan, we must be in the heavenly Jerusalem before or on the 10th of Nisan. So the child is raptured into the heavenly Jerusalem, the Lord's dwelling place, heavenly Mount Zion, the tabernacle of Jehovah, the city of gold, where the coronation will take place. That's the reason why in Revelation 7 we're holding palm branches. Remember the multitude in Jerusalem when Yeshua, the triumphal entry, which happened on the 10th of Nisan, they were supposed to crown him on that day, but he was rejected. So now on the 10th of Nisan, 5782, that coronation will take place not on earth, but in the heavenly Jerusalem. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts. It shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. Malachi 4, verses 1 and 2. This is the arrival of the fiery red dragon, the Son of Righteousness, the destroyer. So, rightly dividing Matthew 24, you see Matthew 24, verse 7 stands out. That's talking about the coming of the Son of Man, it's not included in the events that take place from the halfway point of the time of Jacob's trouble to Armageddon. So, for as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Matthew 24, verse 7. This is talking about when the fiery red dragon is approaching the earth and the plasma discharge takes place. And this is what will take place when Yeshua comes down to judge the earth. This is one of the things that will take place. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Matthew 24, verse 27. And when he arrives, what takes place? Isaiah 26, verse 20 to 21, Zechariah 2, verse 13, Jeremiah 4, verse 1 to 26, Jeremiah 30. So, the arrival of the rider on the white horse, which happened in the first Revelation 12 sign, came with the bow, the covenant with many, The Abraham Accord, covenant with many. Okay, this is when the first Revelation 12 sign began on the 17th of November 2016 and lasted till the 23rd of November, 23rd of September 2017. This is exactly when Donald Trump won the elections and was inaugurated as president. That sign signified the arrival of the rider on the white horse. We are right here, rumors of wars. The next horse is war, the plan of the enemy. Operation Blackjack, which will worsen the economic situation, cause great death, and lead to Christian persecution. And then the end will come when the 144,000 are redeemed and sealed, and the great multitude are gathered. Remember, the great multitude, they're from every tongue and every tribe. And remember, the reason is because they are the Goyim, they are the great multitude from every nation, every tribe, every tongue. That's why they are the great multitude here. They're not the ones that, are raptured out of the time of Jacob's trouble. In the time of Jacob's trouble, only the children of Jacob, the third remnant of the children of Jacob who have become elect, who have come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua, will be raptured. Gentiles have their time. This ends the time of the Gentiles. After this, there is no Gentile that will be saved. People say, oh, Gentiles will be saved with their own blood during the time of tribulation. That's not true. That's not what the Bible says. It says that, do you not know that blindness in part has come on the Jews until the time of the Gentiles is up. That's the age of grace ends, which ends with the rapture, the gathering of the great multitude, the Goyim. And then you will have the rapture, and then Satan is cast down, and then the fiery dragon pummels the earth, destroys Gog of Magog, and then there's silence in the heavens when the seventh seal is opened. That's when the children of Israel are migrating back to Israel, the great Aliyah, and they rebuild their temple. And then Tishri 1, Yeshua will come to the temple, and he will come with the two witnesses who will confirm that Yeshua is the Lord. Remember, that's the reason why they are the two witnesses who stand before the Lord. They are the ones who stood before the Lord at the Mount of Transfiguration. They're the ones who heard when the Lord said, "This is my son, listen to him." And that's what they will tell people. This is the Messiah. And he will come with the 144,000. However, he will be rejected. And when he's rejected, he will leave. And then the children of Jacob will turn to the Antichrist, and they will confirm the covenant, which was initially brought by the rider on the white horse. Do you see it? And then Yeshua will give power to his two witnesses to prophesy for 1,250 days, I think, or the first 3.5 years. They will prophesy. Okay? At the beginning, the Antichrists will confirm the covenant with many, and then 3.5 years into that time, he will kill the two witnesses who will be raptured into heaven, and then he will go into the temple claiming himself to be God. This is the abomination that causes desolation that is spoken of by Daniel. And it is after this abomination, at this time is when Jerusalem will be encompassed, men will be killed, women ravaged, children sold into slavery, but those who believe in Yeshua will escape through the pass when Yeshua comes down and the Mount of Olives splits and creates a pass. They will flee to Petra. And then after this abomination that causes desolation is when there will be great tribulation. But the period is not called the great tribulation. The period is called Daniel's 70th week, or the time of Jacob's trouble. But after the abomination that causes desolation, there will be great tribulation. People will experience great trouble, great distress, great tribulation, all the way leading up into Armageddon. So this is the end times in pictorial form. Right now, we are here. Okay? These will all come in quick succession. I will do a follow-up video that will explain the timing. So the tribulation spoken of is what happens here, the fifth seal, at the when people will when people will be offended. Okay? And it'll last for days until the rapture occurs. So these are the seals. Those are the four horsemen. After the rapture, we now have the four chariots of Zechariah. So basically, more deception, greater wars, greater famine, and greater death and destruction. You can take a screenshot of this. So, how do we know when the time of Jacob's trouble begins? Well, it is when the covenant is confirmed. When the Antichrist confirms the covenant with many, which he will do at about Yom Kippur 5783. That's Yom Kippur 2022. This is when he will amend the Trump peace deal, covenant of the Abraham Accord with many, the covenant with death, Isaiah 28 verses 14 to 19. So then shall he confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. That's the beginning of the time of Jacob's trouble. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and oblation and offering, sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, that's the Antichrist, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. So what is determined to be poured out on the Antichrist? Something is determined to be poured out on the Antichrist. So this is where we get the names for the final 7 years. This, Daniel's 70th week, shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. And this, ask now and see whether a man is ever in labor with child. So why do I see every man with his hands on his loins like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it, and it is the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Jeremiah 30 verses 6 to 7. So who's saved out of the time of Jacob's trouble? Jacob, the children of Jacob, not the Gentiles. As a Gentile, you can only be saved during the age of grace. So at the beginning of the time of Jacob's trouble, after Yeshua has been rejected and they have gone into a covenant with the Antichrist, Yeshua will give authority to his 2 witnesses, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Revelation 11 verse 3. And this will mark the beginning of the 7 trumpet judgments after Yom Kippur 5783. Yom Kippur 2022. So as I said, this is a pictorial form from birth pangs to Armageddon. We are here at the moment. Operation Blackjack will soon be initiated, which will lead to the tribulation, and then the rapture. And then the building of the temple during the silence in heavens after the 7th seal has been opened, and then the beginning of the time of Jacob's trouble. So, tribulation comes before the rapture, as is obvious in the Bible, and it's for days, not years. Great tribulation, people go through great tribulation after the halfway point of the time of Jacob's trouble, or Daniel's 70th week. It's not labeled the Great Tribulation. There will be great tribulation. There's nowhere that it says the Great Tribulation. The period is not labeled as the Great Tribulation. No. After this event, great tribulation occurs. In other words, people go through great suffering, great pain, great anguish. So this is what confuses people when they use the word tribulation to label this time. It is not labeled as the Great Tribulation or tribulation. No, it's called the time of Jacob's trouble or Daniel's 70th week. After the halfway point, people go through great tribulation. Before the rapture, people go through tribulation for days, not years. So I hope that's obvious from our studies. And then halfway point through the time of Jacob's trouble, the Antichrist will kill the two witnesses. They will be raptured. The Antichrist will go into the temple, proclaiming himself to be God, the abomination that causes desolation. Okay, so that is what it's the abomination that causes desolation that lets us know when people will go through great tribulation. Okay, rightly dividing the word. Yeah, so this is described in Matthew 24 from verses 15 to 26. We leave out 27 because that's talking about the coming of the Son of Man, and then 28. Okay, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whosoever readeth, let him understand. Matthew 24 verse 15. Okay, so when does the abomination that causes desolation occur? Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offerings. This is when the abomination of desolation occurs, halfway through the time of Daniel's 70th week, the time of Jacob's trouble. And on the wings of abomination shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation, which is determined, is poured out on the desolate. So what is determined to be poured out on him? We shall see. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Matthew 24 verses 16 to 18. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath. But then shall be great tribulation. You see what I mean? There is no the great tribulation. No. For then shall be great tribulation. Great tribulation occurs after the halfway point of the time of Jacob's trouble. The period is not called the great tribulation. So don't let people confuse you. Then shall be great tribulation, great trouble, great distress, great anguish, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. Matthew 24, verse 19 to 21. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake. These are the ones who have become elect, because during the time of Jacob's trouble, they have come to the saving knowledge of Yeshua. These are Yeshua's brethren. They're the ones who go through the time of Jacob's trouble. They are the elect saints, not the elect bride, the elect saints. So for the sake of the elect saints, the days will be shortened, and Yeshua will harvest them out of this time. So for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, because then the Antichrist and the false prophet will be on the scene. Matthew 24, verses 22 to 23. For there shall arise false Christs, the false Christ, and false prophets, as the false prophet, and shall show great signs and wonders. What does the false prophet do? He shows great signs and wonders, in so much that if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you beforehand. Now, why is he telling them beforehand? Jesus is talking to the children now. He's talking to the children, the elect saints who will be in the time of Jacob's trouble. That's why he's talking here about false Christ, false prophets, because this is after the halfway point of the time of Jacob's trouble. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, behold, believe it not. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Matthew 24, verses 26 and 28. So remember, 27 applies to the coming of the Son of Man. The carcass and the eagles being referred to here is at the end, when he comes down to defeat the people, when the birds come to feed on the carcasses. So this part of Matthew 24 is talking about from the time of the abomination that causes desolation, midway point through the time of Jacob's trouble, all the way to the end, all the way to Armageddon. And this is when it is at this time that Yeshua will rescue the third. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. Zechariah 13, verse 8. And I will bring the third part through the fire and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. Zechariah 13, verse 9. This is when Yeshua comes down, his feet on the Mount of Olives, and the Mount of Olives split and create a path through which the third will flee to Petra. They will flee into the wilderness. The woman fleeing to the wilderness after the initial 100 and after the initial 3.5 years, according to Revelation. So the woman is in Israel for the first 3.5 years, and then after that they flee to the wilderness, to a place prepared for them, the Petra. The third remnant, the woman, will flee through the pass to Petra, the wilderness. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown. You see, at this point, Yeshua has been crowned. This is when he comes to harvest his brethren, and in his hand a sharp sickle. So he has a golden crown and a sharp sickle. Revelation 14, verse 14. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Revelation 14, verses 15 to 16. So, this is when Yeshua raptures his brethren, because when they are in Petra, they will cry out to him. They will cry out to him, and he will answer. He will go up with the shout of the Lord, with the sound of a trumpet. Psalm 47, verse 5. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the days of battle. Zechariah 14, verse 3. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me, for I will tread them in mine anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. Isaiah 63, verse 3. See, when Yeshua tramples the grapes, it'll be in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the treading of the winepress. And this is what is described in Joel 3. Okay, this is what is described in Revelation 14, verse 20. And the winepress was trodden without the city, the valley of Jehoshaphat, and the blood came out of the winepress even unto the horse's bridle by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Revelation 14, verse 20. This is when he treads the winepress. This happens in Jerusalem, the valley of Jehoshaphat. Now this is totally different from Armageddon. So Yeshua, with his crown and his sickle, will harvest his brethren and take them into the heavenly Jerusalem. These are the Jacobs who have now become Israel, who have been grafted back in. Remember, they were broken off. The natural branches were broken off. But then after the rapture of the great multitude, the Goyim, during the time of Jacob's trouble, the remnant will be grafted back in. This is what happens. That's when they become the elect saints. That is when they have spiritual birth, when they become Israel, chosen, the elect, and can now go into the heavenly Jerusalem and are chosen to attend the Lamb's wedding feast as guests. Their names are now written in the Lamb's Book of Life. They can now be transformed, the remnant, and they will be brought in together with the 144,000 first fruits. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. So you see, the first fruits, the 144,000 that were brought in during the time of the first rapture, were brought in order to be the first fruits to be brought in during the time of Jacob's trouble, for the harvest of Yeshua's brethren. Yeshua was the first fruit of the brethren of the wheat harvest, the great multitude that came in during the rapture. Then during the time of Jacob's trouble, the 144,000 will be the first fruit for that harvest. So these are they who are now standing before the sea of glass with harps. And note what it says. Okay, these are Yeshua's brethren. And I saw something like a sea of glass mingled with fire, and those who have the victory, see, they have the victory over the beast. Said they're the ones who were around when the beast came. The church isn't around. The goyim, the multitude of nations, are not around when the beast is around. The remnant saints are the ones that are around. And so they're the ones who have the victory over the beast, over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, having harps of God. Revelation 15 verse 2. The remnant children of Jacob, the saints, who have now become elect. That's why it says that they had victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name. The great multitude in Revelation 7 don't go through this because they're the great multitude. They're the goyim. They're the Gentiles who were grafted in during the age of grace. Once the age of grace is over, no Gentile will be saved. Only the brethren of Yeshua, the third remnant, will be harvested. Okay, Revelation 15 verse 2. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. So they sing the song of Moses because they are ethnic children of Jacob. And they sing the song of the Lamb because they have come to the realization that Yeshua is Messiah during the time of Jacob's trouble, saying, "Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty, just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints." Revelation 15, verse 3. So, after they've been harvested and taken out of the earth, then and on the wings of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. And what will be poured out on the desolate one, the Antichrist? Well, the final bowl judgments, because now the third of Yeshua's people have been rescued. So now the bowl judgments will be poured on the earth, which basically brings us to the end. In heaven, while the bowl judgments are being poured out on the earth, and to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. Note, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints, not the elect bride now. The bride puts on the righteousness of the saints. So the saints have to come in and clothe the bride before the wedding can take place. Revelation 19 verse 8. Even though the saints will now be guests because they were not part of the bride who are raptured out. You can only be part of the bride when you're raptured out in the dispensation of grace. The dispensation of the time of Jacob's trouble, when Yeshua's brethren are raptured, they become guests at the feast, not part of the bride. And all those who attend the wedding supper, marriage supper, are elect, because they're all blessed. Blessed are they who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Revelation 19, verse 9. And then the marriage takes place. And after that, the Lord comes down and the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. Revelation 19, verse 14. This is Armageddon. Now, this time the Lord does not tread the winepress alone. This time he comes with the armies of heaven, and he vanquishes all the kings of the earth who come against him. Note, Matthew 24, they are mourning, they're running into the mountains and asking the mountains to fall on them and hide them. When he comes back, Revelation 19, they're coming out to fight him and his armies. And when he vanquishes them, the birds shall feast on the carcass, rightly dividing. Now this will take place in the valley of Megiddo, which is up north, not Jerusalem. The first major battle will happen in Jerusalem, the valley of Jehoshaphat. That is when the winepress will be trodden by Yeshua on his own. But in the valley of Megiddo, which refers to Armageddon, it'll be Yeshua with the armies of heaven destroying all the kings that come against Yeshua, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. So, the tribulation happens before the rapture. Please understand and don't deceive, because Yeshua says that many will be offended because when the tribulation comes, they will not know. So those who know better should tell them, don't be afraid. Yeshua already said this. It is just an opportunity for you to showcase. Yeshua says, don't even think about what you will say. Words will be given to you because it is for your witness. Remember, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. That is how you overcome. Yeshua overcame the same way, and many will overcome. Yeshua says many will fall away because many will believe that there's no tribulation and the rapture will come and take them away. This is simply not what the Bible says. This is simply not true. Operation Blackjack is coming. It will be initiated. So prepare yourselves, people, so that you can comfort other people when it begins. Once before, over 2,000 years ago, he came as a gentle sacrificial lamb to pay for our sins. Then when he returns, in the near future, he is coming with great wrath and anger as a terrible, fierce judge to judge the earth. So please, make peace with him now. He is coming. He is angry. How do you make peace with him? Admit that you are a sinner. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Romans 3, verse 23. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. 1 John 1, verse 8. For the wages of sin is death. Romans 6, verse 23a. B. Believe in the Lord Yeshua. But the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Romans 6, verse 23b. And the gospel, the good news that Jesus came, he died on the cross, he was buried, he rose again after 3 days, he has risen to the right hand of the Father and is coming back to rescue his bride and to judge the living and the dead. That is the good news. If you believe in him, you will be incorporated into the body of the bride. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. John 3, verse 16. Call upon the name of the Lord. See the ABCs of salvation. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. Romans 10, verse 10. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Romans 10, verse 13. And you will become part of the bride. Thank you very much for listening to this. Tribulation is coming. Operation Blackjack will be initiated. Prepare yourselves. The phoenix sets fire to his nest, and out of the ashes will rise the new phoenix, and out of the ashes will rise the new order. Operation Blackjack is the final fire that will be lit, and out of the ashes, their new order will emerge. Be ready and do not be afraid. I am a watchman standing on the wall, blowing the horn as loudly as I can. God bless you.